alive in here.
Hi, and welcome to the Salty Seaman, the place where geeks can rant about random things that they care about, whether it's movies, comics, pro wrestling, MMA, TV shows. In fact, let's talk about a TV show. Let's talk Gotham. Now, if you haven't seen this yet, this is that Gotham, Batman, big guy, one of the biggest, if not the biggest superhero in the world, maybe next to Superman. But this isn't a Batman show. This is about Gotham. Particularly, this is about James Gordon, not yet commissioner. This is James Gordon as a detective on the streets about 20 years prior to Batman, or 10 years, 50. You know, it's when Bruce Wayne is about 10 years old. This is, in fact, the first episode is right when right when his parents get murdered. So that's our setup. In fact, the setup is James Gordon himself, along with Harvey Bullock, who is his partner. And this is their first case together, is the Wayne murders. And right away you see they're tying everything together. This is one of the big parts of the show right off the bat, is kind of tying the Bat universe into one event, which looks to be the Wayne murder. How you feel about that is up to you. I mean, I kind of don't always like when you take the comic book medium and you put it in another medium. They want to keep everything tied together. You know, go back to the first Batman Tim Burton movie. The Joker is the one who killed his parents because, you know, had to give him a reason to fight the Joker besides he's batshit crazy. So this one, we're getting, you know, James Gordon is the one, you know, is the detective on the case. He's a straight arrow. He's Mr. by-the-book cop. He's a war hero. He looks like he just came out of the military, a detective. I don't think that's how it works. I don't know. I'm not a police guy. I don't watch all the police procedurals. If you're one of those Law and Order guys, let me know. You know, you can do that. But as far as I know, he had to spend time as a beat cop before he picked up detective. That's how I know it works. But they don't really mention it. It just sounds like he was in the army as an officer, I think. He went to war in Afghanistan. He's a big war hero. Now he's in Gotham as a detective. Okay. So the big story here is, you know, I said part was the connectivity. We got those two elements. Catwoman is the... Okay, so you got those... So we already got that. You got the ties. Harvey Bullock, you know, most of his time in the Bat universe, he is a grumpy detective who doesn't like vigilantes, especially Batman, but he's pretty much a decent cop. Here he's not. He's corrupt and lazy, apathetic. Affably so. I mean, it's one of the good things to do is they're making him likable, and it's be really easy to hate him because he is, you know, he's the bad cop to James's good cop. He's corrupt. He's chummy with, you know, he's really chummy with the bad guys, the ones in power. He's doesn't want to take cases that, you know, look like they're gonna be a lot of trouble, like the Wayne's case. You know, right off the bat, once he finds out the two murdered people are in fact the Waynes, he's like, "Hey, I'm out." You know, we're calling the special, the high-profile crimes unit. Didn't want to deal with it. Of course, James does. He talks to young Bruce, making that connection right away. Instead of, you know, if you're a Year One fan, you know they kind of meet when he becomes commissioner. And I believe he came from another city. Actually, he wasn't actually a Gotham detective before he became commissioner. I could be wrong on that, but if I remember right, Year One, he comes in as commissioner and takes over, and he's working to clean up the corruption. And there's a lot of corruption, and this show does not skip the credit. It laughably overdoes it. You know, we'll get to that, but you know that's part of the show. And he's coming. He's making that connection with young Bruce, comforting him at the scene. He's like, "Hey, you know, I lost my parents to drunk driving, I think, and you know, I'll find these guys. That's my promise to you." Blah blah blah. And you know, Harvey's like, "I don't want nothing to do with it." You know, tying in at the scene of the crime, a young Catwoman, pre-Catwoman sees it. You know, just again tying everything in together. You know, not to mention they go and investigate, try to find the random perp who did it. They end up in a gangster's territory. This Lieutenant 2 Falco. If you're a Batman fan, you know the name Falco. He's one of the big gangsters of Gotham. And one of his lieutenants is this black female. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. I just think of her as Eartha Kitt. It's also one of my little pet theories. No pun intended. You know, she will be actually Catwoman first. and she'll be kind of doing the Eartha Kitt '66 Batman style of Catwoman. She's kind of giving off that vibe. So, but tying it in, one of her lackeys is a pre-Penguin, still is Cobblepot. So those are all those elements tying together. The whole Batman crew. One of the CSI type guys at Gotham that helps with the case is Edward Nygma, aka will soon be the Riddler. Eartha Kitt is watching a comedian audition for a club. So obviously, it's supposed to be, it could be a red herring, but I'm assuming it's supposed to be Joker, pre-Joker, telling really hackneyed, crappy jokes, which I like because Joker isn't funny as a comedian. That was always one of the things they showed about him, is he is actually terrible at straight jokes. He's great at broad black comedy. The whole world's a joke, blah, blah, blah. But when he tries to tell a joke, they're crappy jokes, and he's telling really tired, hacky jokes. Hopefully he's not stealing other people's material because, hey, you know what? You might be the Joker, you might be the Joker before the Joker, but Joe Rogan has 2 black belts, and he'll still kick your ass. So don't fuck around, dude. Just letting you know. So yeah, we're already set up for, everything in Gotham is tying together. You already got your 4 biggest villains already lined up, somehow tied in with the Wayne's murder, which is, I think, going to be the thing of the whole show. Is they're setting up as this is, at least the first season, this is going to be the big overarching plot is them figuring out who killed the Waynes and why, if there was a reason why. And Harvey did nothing to do with the case. Like I said, he's lazy. It's high profile. They have a high profile crime division, which is kind of interesting that apparently in Gotham you can call first. If you call dibs, that you can't break it. It's like childhood playground rules. I don't know how that works in real cop world. If you have a high profile crimes division, they wouldn't automatically take it anyway, whether the original detectives didn't want to give it up or not. But maybe it's different everywhere, and they can just say if it's different everywhere, then they can just say in Gotham that's how it works. Fine. Gotham exists in its own little weird vacuum. Whatever. More on that later. But Harvey at one time gets asked by the high profile crime unit, hey, you can give us the case, we know you don't want it. And he almost gives it to him, but then they kind of insult him, and he's like, yeah, fuck you. And so out of pride, he keeps it. And of course, Gordon didn't want to give up anyway, so they investigate it. So yeah, they find Mrs. Wayne's pearls. Think the guy's dead. Hero cop, they got him. The first red herring is they think they found the guy. They, through Eartha Kitt, who Harvey is of course all chummy with because he's a corrupt, lazy cop. They get this one guy, and they think he's the, and he's just this terrible person. He's an ex-con. He beats his family. They go out of the way to make sure that he's a terrible guy. And they ask to search his house, and he runs. They chase him. He shoots at them. They shoot him and kill him. So they search his house, find Mrs. Wayne's. I keep saying Miss Wayne's pearls, and hey, done deal. Hero, they get lauded in the paper, hero cops. But then Penguin snitches on his boss. Goes to the high-profile crimes unit guy and say, hey, that guy was a setup. He's a patsy. Didn't happen that way. So of course the crime guys immediately go, hey, weird. They must. Harvey and Gordon must have set it up. Of course, they're detectives. Why would they investigate anything? Because that's ridiculous. You don't investigate, possible cop corruption. You just immediately assume they're involved because that's what detectives do, right? But it's part of getting this whole thing of no one's on James's side. He's a man alone. Everyone else in the force is corrupt, except him. He's a straight arrow, and the 2 people who apparently are also straight and narrow think he's corrupt now. So that never gets resolved. They go back to, he goes in, John Wayne on Eartha Kitt, and she strings him up and is about to execute him. Harvey tries to save him. Harvey gets strung up, and they almost get killed, and then they get saved, and she finds out Penguin is the one who snitched on her. She figures out he's the only one who would have known. They beat him half to death, cobble his legs, for lack of a better word. So that's, we see him get his waddle. And the actor, speaking of, the actor is really not, they don't put a lot of prosthetics on him, if any. Like, he has a really sharp nose. I don't know if that's the actor's natural nose. I don't think it is, but that's about it. Otherwise, he looks like a kind of normal guy with just a big beaky nose, and now he's going to have a waddle. But other than that, he's he's still normal. He's not like Danny DeVito, where they put out pounds and pounds of prosthetics on him, and he's got the claws, and his face is completely almost unhuman. But still, he's still the Penguin, and they basically kind of leading into the whole. My biggest problem is the city is just so corrupt. They basically blackmail Gordon into killing him. They said, you got to get with the program, i.e. be a corrupt cop. So we kill the snitch, or we kill you and your fiance, Barbara. Barbara Senior. How does that work with females? I don't know. Like if you get named after your mother, you don't get a junior or senior like guys do. But not Batgirl, but her mom, Barbara. Fiance at the time, they're not yet married. So he fakes Penguin's death sitting on the end of a pier. He shoots the gun off in the air beside him and pushes him into the pier and says, "Don't ever come back to Gotham." Harvey's like 10 feet behind him, and somehow he's not suspicious. He doesn't see any blood. Apparently there's no difference between a gun going off and a gun hitting somebody. Kind of a detective, plus you've probably seen people get shot before. I don't know. Just, I can let it go. It just seems a little weird to me. But that's our setup, that's our pilot. I didn't want to review it before I saw another episode, because I always thought everyone always likes to review the pilot, because we're like, hey, it is a taste, but it's never really what you're going to get. It's usually the best they had, or something that's going to drastically change in the next episode, because the pilot was made so well before the rest of it was. But we got all these elements in there, so we're tying all the big guns together. The only thing we didn't have was them going to the circus to relax and meeting the flying Graysons and the pregnant mom Grayson. But that's probably that will happen. I can almost fucking guarantee it. The Graysons will show up because everyone else is going to. We'll probably get like a Lex Luthor as a 10-year-old cameo or some shit. I don't know. But anyway, it goes on to, so the next episode we go on to now next episode. So now we go on to the next episode. Everyone thinks Gordon's with the program. He's killed a guy. And so he's dirty like the rest of them, so everyone's kind of laying off of him. But they got to remind him every 5 seconds he killed a guy, which is hilarious. Like, when he calls it out at one point, he's like, "Hey, can you say that a little louder?" But really, they just keep harping on it. Like, it's for the audience, but it's like, yeah, we got it. You showed it in the intro and the recap of the previous episode. You don't have to keep saying like, "Hey, remember the time you shot that guy?" Good times. I don't know. It's just part of this like whole thing with like in episode 2 is just like off the cliff of, this is like the most comically corrupt organization you've ever seen. City, cops, whatever. And not just comically, but in terms of, pushing plausibility past the point of no return, because it's like an SNL sketch. If you had to like write one satirizing a really corrupt police department, this is what you would have done. Maybe with more jokes, but essentially it's that comically corrupt. And, overlooking, these guys are so casually corrupt and, just openly talking about, like, all the mob bosses you're in bed with and, killing off snitches, it's like, somebody's not going to call the, state police or state investigative bureau or even the feds, FBI come in and investigate these guys. Like, they don't live in a vacuum. They presumably live in the United States. They won't say, Gotham doesn't live in a particular state. I think maybe Jersey... I think this was either confirmed or semi-confirmed it was in Jersey, but regardless, say it is Jersey, the governor of New Jersey doesn't, like, ever get a call, like, hey, you gotta investigate these motherfuckers in Gotham, they're fucking psycho corrupt. And they send in all their guys, and they take one look at them and go, like, fuck you, and fire every one of them and put their own guys in. Or if the feds come in, the FBI comes in, and it's like, yeah, fuck all y'all, you're all in prison, and we're putting other people in charge. Yeah, you can be corrupt, but you have to show plausibility. They're covering their tracks. Even though everyone else is corrupt, they can't make it obvious. It's because other people could come in and fuck everything up. But they're being so ham-fisted with like letting you know, like, hey, these guys are really corrupt, and Gordon's our only hope. That's kind of what we get. This episode's kind of a spotlight on the younger Catwoman. Like I said, I think the mob boss, Eartha Kitt, is going to be a Catwoman. And then we'll get Selena Kyle, who we've seen here in the first episode. Like I said, she watched the Wayne's murder. Here she is, find out she's homeless. You know, we saw her steal stuff. She's, you know, still a thief. She's a pickpocket. About 13 years old. One of the best parts of the show so far. She's just really adorable little girl. Great actress. You know, I loved her. She's perfect in the role. And this whole episode kind of revolves around people are stealing homeless kids, and they don't know why or what for. They never explain what it's for. I don't think, maybe it's not on purpose. Maybe they dance around child sex slavery. So they kind of talk about, well, if it was pretty girls, you know, I understand, but they're just taking all of them. So either they're dancing around it because it's broadcast TV, maybe, which I think Law & Order and CSI and all that shit talks about this stuff anyway. Maybe it's different because it's a Batman show. But either they're dancing around it or, you know, at some point they'll reveal there's a sinister purpose to it. I don't know. But these people, she escapes from these dastardly people, and it's up to, of course, Harvey and James to go find them. And of course, the same thing. Harvey's like apathetic and lazy and corrupt, but still likable. You know, just kind of like, I don't do this, but he kind of gets thrown in his pocket. It kind of gets thrown in his face. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll go be a cop and do my job. And of course, James is all like, do, I'm Mr. Super Cop, and you know, I'm a war hero, and I'm a straight arrow, and everyone thinks they killed a guy but didn't. Yada yada yada. So anyway, it all comes down to like they get the big break in the case, and they arrested the kids twice because first time didn't take. They're not just corrupt. They're, you know, because they're not just corrupt. They're, you know, completely incompetent too. You know, somehow these kidnappers managed to get a bus that was going to take these kids to foster homes and kids' homes or whatever, and you know, somehow they got on it and took the kids and got all the way off with them, but they caught up with him. You know, Kid Cat escapes and she claws some guards' eyes out, which is pretty cool actually. Again, plausibility, but shit like that you let slide. It's a fucking comic book TV show, for Christ's sake. But yeah, she escapes and she says, "Hey, what took you so long?" And then, you know, Gordon and James finally show up. So it was good, and you know, we got more Bruce, and you know, they did kind of question, you know, why doesn't he get therapy? So, I mean, this is the perfect show to kind of explore all those things about, you know, Batman's in-between years, but at the same time, I hope they don't overdo, we gotta see Bruce Wayne every episode. I think there's no need. You know, I don't think he's that interesting as pre-Batman. You know, this one we kind of see him, you know, he's burning himself with a candle, he says he's testing himself, and he's drawing these weird-ass pictures, and listen to metal, yeah. And all this stuff, and, you know, James comes to talk to him, and you know, he asks Alfred straight up, like, hey, why don't you take him to therapy? Which is what I think we all ask at some point. It's like, dude, why didn't you go to therapy? You wouldn't be dressed up like a bat beating up criminals. It wouldn't be a good comic, but, you know, therapy makes lousy comics, right? So he says, like, oh, he doesn't want it, and, you know, Mr. Wayne's wishes were, you know, if I ever take care of him, you know, I let him make his own decisions, which is fucking stupid. Like, this guy's like a multi-millionaire doctor, inventor of all these patents, I think, and somehow he doesn't know enough about parenting to not let a 10-year-old raise himself. And also, I really hope they're going to address this because, you know, I know it's part of Batman lore and you couldn't get around it, but the butler raising the kid, a millionaire kid at that, there's no other family that would have came and claimed him, or tried to at least. You know, custody battles, like, hey, fuck the butler. I don't care what the will said. I'm his kin. He's a fucking butler. You know, I get custody of him. Show keeps going. They'll have to do that storyline because, you know, there has to be other relatives between the two parents. You know, they weren't living. Again, there's not a vacuum. But, you know, I don't have a problem with it now because, like I said, it's part of Batman lore, and as long as they address it at some point, it's fine. But again, I don't need Bruce every episode. After a while, we establish, yes, Bruce Wayne's here. Yes, they're still looking for his real killer. And it'll tie into every single person in the Bat universe eventually, I'm sure. And hopefully also pull back now that they've ham-fistedly established, like, hey, this is a very corrupt place. Like, yeah, we got it. pull back the plausibility just a little bit so it's kind of believable. We got it. We're gonna explore stuff like that. Explore why no relatives step in to try to raise him. All those little details. And but there's a lot of room for the show to go with. A lot of places it can go. It doesn't have. It could. I don't know if it wants to be a campy proto comic book show or it wants to be kind of a poor man's Law and Order. Best way it could do it is try to ride the line between the two, but it's just got to watch the campiness. And I'm a '66 Batman fan. I love that stuff, but I don't think the show really is designed for that. You got to kind of tone it a bit. The other thing great besides Kid Cat was the Penguin storyline. He gets out of the ocean and he's going to look for, he's seeing him kind of getting back to where he was, or at least seeing the beginning of where he's going to be. So we know where Penguin eventually ends up as a crime lord to himself. So now we see him basically building his empire. Not right now, we basically see nothing, but we assume this is where he's going to start building his empire and, where he started, basically from taking himself from a watery grave. So, a lot of potential. If the ham-fistedness continues, I might not continue with the show. I would just be like, yeah, I can't do it. I can only take so much bullshit. This is a lifelong comic book reader here, but I can't. And especially in this kind of show, and we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Arrow and all these other shows that really do good stuff with this stuff, and so give it more of a chance. I would at least go through half a season before I would just throw my hands up and say, alright, I can't fucking deal with it. But as of right now, it's mostly fine, but there's a couple of glaring things just bugging me. And hopefully they'll tone it down or it'll go away as the show kind of finds its bearings. That's it. That was my review. Let me know what you think, how it could be improved. If you really like it, you think I'm full of shit, I should shut up. Say it in the comments. I'll answer pretty much everything, either in the comments or on a video. If you like my stuff, you're a big fan of all things geeky, video games, TV, movies, comic books. So I'm also a big MMA guy. Check out my MMA videos. A little pro wrestling here and there. Tabletop RPGs. I might put some of those up. Keep tuned. Stay tuned. Keep it locked, as we say in the biz. And I'll have a lot more of that stuff coming up. So just hit subscribe, and I'm outie. Peace.